Welcome to Dear Romance Writer, where two writers who always deliver happily ever afters offer questionable advice for all of your relationship, work, and life problems. I'm Zio Axelrod.
And I'm Roan Parrish. It is just us today, an
I
intimate little
know.
tete-a-tete. So let's get into it. I'm excited about this letter, or I chose this letter for us because neither of us are parents.
Hmm.
But it is a question about child rearing, kind of, but I actually think it's more a question about like how generously or ungenerously we approach human beings in our lives, more generally. So I'm excited
Yeah.
to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
All right, so this is from Am I the Asshole? I have two daughters. One of them is Abby, 22, and the other is Anna, 16. When Abby was 16, she suddenly started to act weird, like screaming and yelling for no reason. We were very worried about her, so my husband and I put her in therapy and we did everything we could to help her. Anna always tries to do whatever Abby does. For example, when Abby turned 14, she joined the basketball team. When Anna turned 14, she did the exact same thing. There are many more examples. When Anna turned 16, she started to act exactly like Abby. It was clear that she's only doing this to get our attention, and there's really nothing wrong with her. So my husband and I decided to ignore her behavior, hoping she would stop acting like this, which after a month, she did. However, now she's giving us the silent treatment. I was talking to my sister about this, and she told me we are assholes for ignoring her when she tried to get our attention.
Hmm.
So that was the end. Then edit.
Mhm.
Since so many people seem to think I should get some help for her, I told her she should start seeing the school counselor. Her school has a really good counselor that could help her. She told me to, quote, fuck off, which just proved that she doesn't want help, just attention. Now she's grounded, and hopefully this will help her stop acting so childish. So first of all, I cannot remember the distinction between the names Abby and Anna, both spelled like A-B-I and A-N-A, because they're like the same name. And how would you ever know which of your children was which? But okay, so Abby is the older one. Anna
Yeah.
is the younger one.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Abby, Anna.
And
What?
so wait, Abby is 22 now. So they're 6 years apart.
Yeah.
So Anna was 10 when Abby's behavioral issues presented themselves.
Yes. Yep.
So 6 years, she waited for 6 years to do this.
Yeah. No fucking way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's not how copying works. I remember very
No.
well being an older sibling to a little sister who copied everything I did. And the shelf life on copying is like a week. It's like it's
Yeah.
you're doing actively because you're seeing someone doing a thing and then doing the same thing, not like the long game that a 10-year-old plans for 6 years, like fucking Hannibal
10
Lecter.
year olds, yeah, they don't have that. And I mean, if it was something like she wanted to get her driver's license or she wanted to go to a prom, like that's a life event. That's a thing.
Right.
But this is something else. And it's really interesting that this mom, I think it's the mother, right?
I think so.
I guess it doesn't say.
It doesn't say, but I
Yeah,
do.
this parent thinks that because she eats her pizza the same way as her sister, that this is also copying. Like this is like completely different things. Joining the
Right?
basketball team, maybe that's the age that they're allowed to join the basketball team. I don't know. Like there just seems like there's a lot of false equivalency going on here.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And also like joining the basketball team, that's an interest that if you grow up in
Yeah,
a household and you grow up watching basketball or like watching your older sibling play basketball, then it can like inculcate in you a desire, like a genuine
yeah,
personal desire to play basketball years and
exactly.
years later.
Yeah,
So yeah, I don't think I just think right off the bat, this is not copying.
no, no, I don't think
And so
so.
if it's not copying though, then I'm like looking at the language of this letter. And like, even though these parents got help for Abby, the
Hmm.
way that even after knowing that she needed help, that this person is describing her, when she was 16, she suddenly started to act weird.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah,
that is so judgmental. It's not medicalized language. It's not like using any of the things that maybe they learned in there
in
that
therapy, exactly. I was thinking the
it's
same
just being
thing.
like, so when my daughter was 16, she was a total freak. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
cool. I'm sure she feels super supported, and that the younger sister also knows that she can come to you and like use words to get your attention as opposed to these other behaviors.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that did not make me feel great for either of these siblings.
Well, also, like having one child where you say, okay, you have issues, you have some behavioral issues, we're going to address this, you're going to get therapy. And then telling your other kid, go see your high school counselor. Like, like, I don't know.
How does this parent know that there is a good, like, how could you know there's a good counselor unless you yourself have been to the, like, what you think the school is
Yeah.
telling you when they have a good or a not good counselor?
Yeah. All of our counselors are fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like first, its parent needs to be in therapy themselves. Like
Yes.
they clearly have some internalized stuff going on, especially when it comes to mental health. Who knows? Maybe they dealt with something, and this is how they were dealt with as a kid. Like,
Oh, yeah, totally.
um, so it could be some generational thing going on there. But definitely, like, they need to sit down with both of their daughters in therapy. It's family therapy, individualized therapy, all the therapy in the world needs to happen here. And I feel so bad for Abby rather, because or Anna, because like she's in this place where she saw help being extended to her sister,
Yeah.
and she's like, here I am in the same position, and I'm being like, I'm being grounded, I'm being punished for being who I am. You know
Right.
what I mean? Which is like, wow, that's like a whole other can of worms to open.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to me because, like, again, as I said, so neither of us have kids, people listening.
Right.
And I think
Hmm.
I think I'm right in remembering that you never wanted kids. Like, that was just not a
Right.
thing that you were interested.
Right.
Yeah, same. I've
Hmm.
never been interested in kids. But like, I really like teenagers. I liked teenagers when I was a teenager. I like teenagers as an adult. And I feel like one of the things that gets bandied about so much is this phrase, so and so was just trying to get attention.
Hmm.
And it's like, on the face of it, I do understand what people mean by that. But I'm like, why is that bad? Isn't that what you like? Shouldn't your kid be able to expect attention from you, their parent? Is that not kind of your job? And the sort of like agreement that you entered into when you had a kid was saying, like, I will give them attention.
Yeah.
And whenever people say that, as if it's like either a bad thing or that the person is somehow like breaking the rules by doing a thing to try to get attention, I'm like, well, that is what people do when they like, when do people need attention? Like, they need attention when they're hurt, when they don't know what to do in a
Hmm.
situation,
There's
when they
always
have
an
to
underlying
learn.
issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's what you want, is for your kid to get your attention when they need something from you. And so this language that I, not just in this letter, I feel like I hear parents and
Yeah.
people talk about this all the time, like, oh, so and so's just doing it for attention. It's like, well, right, when people need attention, it's because an underlying need is not being met, or
Yeah.
they need assistance. So framing this as if like getting attention in scare quotes is the same as like breaking things
Yeah.
or doing something, like,
Because it requires doing work that you either don't want to do or you don't feel comfortable doing. So, Anna she needs some assistance, she needs some help, she needs some guidance in something in her life.
right.
And so she, even say, I'm just going with this person's assessment that she's doing this for attention.
Mhm.
So fine, she's doing it for attention. I don't believe that, but let's just say that she's doing it for attention.
Right.
So what is the attention that she needs? She needs something from you, and you're not willing to do that. You're trying to pawn her off on a counselor, and then that didn't work. So now you're just going to ground her so you don't have to deal with it. Like that doesn't solve any problem anywhere. And I feel like even when kids do stuff, quote unquote, to get attention, it's because they're calling out for some other reason, right?
Yep.
They feel neglected, they feel unheard, they feel unseen. They might be dealing with something else that has nothing to do with the parents, but they want their help and they don't know how to ask for it. I mean,
Yep.
there's all kinds of things, but people get so hung up on the, well, this is not how I was raised, or this is not how I grew up, or this is not quote unquote normal.
Yeah.
And so they just shut it off. They shut it off and like deny the possibility that there could be any issue other than you're being a brat or you're being ungrateful or you're being needy or whatever it is. And it's just, yeah.
Yeah. And it's wild because, like, I just think, I'm always for clear communication, but
Hmm.
like, that is a skill that you have to learn. And I don't think that
Especially
most,
with children.
yeah, these are
Children
children.
don't know how to communicate.
No, not unless the parents teach them. And this
Exactly.
parent is clearly teaching the opposite. Like, I grew up in a home where my parents were very open to hearing things. I definitely knew that if there was an emergency, they would help me. And I still did not feel comfortable expressing to them that I was in mental health distress and needed to go to therapy. I think I one time said something like, hey, I think I need to see a therapist. And the second my mom was like, oh, what's wrong? I was like, nothing, got to go to my room. Bye. And I literally never brought it up again.
Oh.
And like, I think I was 14, 15, 13.
Mhm.
Like, I was old enough to express myself as a person. And I had parents that I knew were not going to like mentally harm me or emotionally harm me. And I still was not able to ask for what I needed. And so like, I'm imagining if you have parents or guardians who are like, who you don't know would help you, like if you don't have the privilege of knowing that you would have support, it's even harder to ask for what you need. And so like the fact that this parent, like basically to me, what this parent is saying by writing this letter is, I have created a household where my children don't trust that I will help them and don't believe that I have their best interests at heart. And so I've created this space where they have to act outrageously to get my attention in the hopes that maybe I'll think it's a big enough deal to like pass them off to someone else who might actually be able to help them. And so like, if you say it like that, letter writer, that sucks and it's your fault.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you weren't also like raised in this horrible spiral, but like, yeah, if your kids don't feel comfortable talking to you, like A, it's because it's really hard, and B, it's because you created an environment where they didn't feel comfortable doing that. And like those two things are never going to add up to anyone getting their needs met unless you like shift these patterns. And God, these
And
poor kids.
seriously, offering one solution or what you think is a solution and having the child reject that solution and going, oh, well, I tried. You know what I mean? Like, that's not
Right?
parenting,
No,
you know?
no. And I feel so like I guess what I wish in this letter, I wish there was more information about like,
Yeah.
are the sisters close?
Hmm.
Because like I'm hoping that maybe Abby is the older. Yeah, I'm hoping that maybe Abby can like provide some of the resources for Anna. Maybe say like if maybe she's living out of the house now, if she's in her
Yeah,
20s,
she's 20s. Yeah.
so maybe
Hopefully.
say like you could come stay with me or let me give you the
Hmm.
number of my therapist. But like at 16, if your parents aren't going to pay for that, like maybe you have a job where you make enough money at 16 to like pay for therapy. But it's
Doubt it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a household where, kids were seen, not seen and not heard. Yeah, it was very much like I remember when my this is like a totally unrelated, not unrelated, but like side thing. But when my food allergies presented themselves, I was just hitting puberty, and I had, I used to love like snack on the things that I'm allergic to now. And
yeah,
when they hit, it was really odd because I didn't know what was going on. You know, they didn't know what was going on. And so the response was, "Oh, you're being picky now. You're a finicky eater." And I'm like, "No, something's wrong. Like this is actually physically uncomfortable to eat this apple." You know what I mean? Like, and so it took a long time. Even into my 20s and stuff, I would occasionally get comments like, "Oh, that's right. I forgot that you're a picky eater now." And it's like, no, this isn't me being picky. This is me having general like food allergies. But because it wasn't an issue before, they thought it was just some weird personality trait of mine that I just didn't want to eat spinach anymore, or something like that. It was really strange. So I can understand a little bit of the parent thinking, oh, well, this is a pattern that that her child is repeating or mimicking or something like that. But you got to dig deeper than that. And that's what the point of being a parent is. You can't just have a knee-jerk reaction to something and think one and done.
right,
She clearly has, Anna's clearly asking for help. And for you to deny that help, even if the help isn't needed, even
right.
if you think the help isn't needed, you should still offer the help. You should still try to help. You know what I mean? Like to get to the root of what the issue actually is, whether it's a mental health issue, whether it's being bullied at school, whether it's just feeling neglected or left out, or
Right.
maybe the older sister moved away and now she's feeling alone. Like it could be anything, but you won't know what it is until you actually talk to your child and not make snap judgments based on your lack of experience.
Totally. And
Letter writer.
sometimes, yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And I think that sometimes sometimes the moment where someone is like trying to get attention is a moment where they're saying like, okay, I'm in minor crisis. It's minor.
Mhm.
I wonder what the response will be if I share a little bit about this thing. And if they share a little bit and like try to get the attention and try to do the thing, and what they learn is, oh, I get no response, I get no help, or I get
Mhm.
grounded or sent to the counselor. What do you think is going to happen when they have like the bigger problem?
Yeah. Mhm.
And I find this so like, okay, I don't actually find it confusing, as in, of course, I understand that people have to have kids when they don't want them and are not going to be good at raising them for a million material
Mhm.
and totally understandable reasons. I definitely don't have this fantasy that like the only children that are going to be raised well are raised in like white linen or something. I don't fucking know. But like, I think that there are lots and lots and lots of ways that even if you are really busy, really overextended, really not able to offer like extreme patience and help in a moment, like that
Mhm.
you can still communicate to your kid that this is something that's on offer. And I feel
Mhm.
like this letter writer is someone who is like, cool, solved the problem, got the older daughter into therapy, told the younger daughter to like go to a school
Get over
counselor,
herself, basically.
and now she's
Get
grounded.
over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're grounded.
Like, to me, this is such a classic sense of like, these parents need to sit down, or this parent needs to sit down with that younger daughter and be like, hey, you did this thing, I responded this way, and I think I made a mistake. Like, I
Mhm.
think that probably that's not how I should have responded. I'm sorry, tell me what's going on. Or I made a mistake, that's not how I should have responded, tell me who you would like to talk to.
Yeah.
That's all that has to be said. Like, honestly, it doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't, you don't, like, the letter writer doesn't have to prostrate themselves in front of this child. I know a
Yeah.
lot of parents have a like, I will never admit that I was wrong in front of my children because I have to maintain authority.
Mhm.
And like, I think nothing says authority better than being able to admit, like, hey, upon reflection, I have reevaluated what I said. Easy solution. Would you like to see a therapist? Would you like to see your school counselor? Would you like to do art therapy in your room? Like,
Yeah.
tell me what you need. Sorry, I kind of messed up. Parents aren't perfect. Like, tell me how I can help you.
I don't have a lot of faith that that's gonna happen because that final sentence, "Now she's grounded and hopefully this will help her to stop acting so childish." You're telling a child to stop acting childish. So you want your child to behave like an adult without any of the faculties, life experience, knowledge of an adult. Yeah, I think the letter writer is the one who's acting childish here, and
Yes.
so I really, really hope that the comments that they got, because it sounds like they got some comments like "you need to get your head out of your ass,"
Yeah.
that they don't stomp their feet and run off, because they didn't get the response they were looking for, and that they actually do the work, because otherwise, Anna is going to have it's just setting her up for some bad things. So yeah, so I hope that they all get the help that they need.
I hope so too. And it's setting her up to assume that what she's going to get when she needs help, not just from her own family, is like, but is going to get nothing. And
Hmm.
that's such a bad expectation to take into your other like friendships and relationships as an
Yeah.
adult, because having no expectations means that you don't have any boundaries, don't have any practice asserting your needs or your like requirements. It's
Hmm.
bad. And I'm looking at like, I know I've talked about this before. I don't remember if on the show or just in passing with you, but like, I am one of the many, many people who have like realized that I was autistic during the pandemic,
Hmm.
based on, like, it's embarrassing to admit, but like TikTok and then taking all these tests and doing all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm looking at this letter through that lens, and I'm like, I don't want to just go around diagnosing everyone on Am I the Asshole?
Right.
And
Right.
I'm like, okay, so this sister started screaming and yelling, suddenly trying to like have these body things, like these explosive body things. And I'm like,
Hmm.
so many people who have autism have these like sensory issues that when they crest explode into meltdown in exactly that way, which is like
Hmm.
yelling, screaming, crying, all of these like very physically expressive and kind of uncontrollable things. And then
Hmm.
the other part of meltdown is like not being able to talk, not being able to express yourself. And I'm like, what if your kid like has something, is on the autism spectrum, has some kind of like need in that way. And then what you're saying is now she's giving me the silent treatment. And it's like, maybe your kid's overwhelmed and literally cannot express to you things that they are feeling because
Mm-hmm.
this response was so ungenerous, unwelcoming,
Yeah.
unnurtured, that like you're not getting the silent treatment. You're experiencing someone in meltdown who does not know how to express the like the really real and physical trauma that is besetting them. And
Mm-hmm.
if its onset was at the same time as the sisters,
Same age. Yeah, I was thinking that too.
like this shit runs in families. That's not something that you ignore or call the silent treatment or send to a fucking school counselor.
Yeah. I
Which
mean,
no
this
shade
was
to school counselors, they're just so underfunded that they don't have the resources to do anything.
right. I'm like, where do you live? Because no, I don't know any school counselors who
Oh
or
no.
have the resources to, but I mean, if your sister is telling you something, I mean, strangers on the internet is one thing, but you have a family member saying, I think that you need to talk to my niece and like really be there for my niece. You're not being doing right by her. And you're saying, whatever. Like it's just there's just so much going on here. So much selfish behavior here and like just myopic behavior here. It's just
Yes. Yeah. And if
yeah.
you're this selfish to your own children, I
Mm.
have like very little expectation that you are doing a lot of good in your
In the world.
community,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
world, the rest of your family. Yeah, like this is a come to Jesus to me for this parent to just like take a look. It's in
It's
a
just
book.
so strange that they had the correct reaction to Abby and the complete opposite reaction to Anna.
Yeah. Well, and the letter writer in the third paragraph where she's like, when Anna turned 16, she started to act exactly like Abby. It was clear she's only doing this to get our
Yeah.
attention. It's like there's that assumption that clearly comes from something,
Yeah.
the trail of like she did basketball, she did this, but like that story that this parent has like already had in mind. I just feel like there's clearly some stuff that they are not telling us about what
Hmm.
they think about Anna as distinct from Abby,
Yeah.
that caused one of them to like get therapy and the other one to be in from the very beginning to be assumed is just doing it for attention, even though
Just
as you
dismissed
pointed
it
out,
completely.
it's
And
like
it's both
6 years later.
yeah, and both of it's my husband and I decided to ignore her behavior. Like they made a decision
Right.
to ignore their child's cry for help. Like
Oh, these poor
ooh.
kids.
Poor
God.
thing.
And every year older I get, the younger 16 seems. I
Yeah.
was at 16, I thought I was, an adult who knew some shit and like could
Yeah.
do or take on anything. Now
Yeah.
at 40, I'm like, babies. They're
Right?
babies.
Yeah. Oy. Well, since we're writers and we spend a lot of time thinking about behavior and motivation, and like I don't understand the motivation behind this parents' behavior, but
Oh.
but is there anything surprising that you think through a character when you're writing? Like, there's anything that like just you know catches you off guard?
Yeah, I love thinking about and talking about like psychology of everyone I know, of my family, of imaginary characters and all the things. So like the surprising thing is that I ever stopped talking about this stuff, but I was thinking about it because so I'm at this cabin in the woods
I
and
know it's so
working
pretty.
on
You guys, if you're not on YouTube, there's this beautiful like idyllic woodland scene I'm rolling at the moment.
yeah, it's really, really beautiful up here. And basically I'm like, oh, I never want to leave. And so right outside our front door is the Appalachian Trail, one of the legs of the Appalachian Trail. And Timmy and I were doing this hike the other day called Sunset Rocks, which is this really beautiful, very challenging to me who has not been getting all the exercise that I need. So we were like, oh, up this trail. And it was
That would
really,
so
really
be me.
beautiful, like you do. And we were talking about the projects that we are working on. And I am at the moment working on redacted graphic novel for the first time.
Hmm.
And excuse me, one of the things that's been really, really interesting to me is to figure out like how to show behavior when it's not written through. And
Hmm.
like I primarily am a fiction writer. And so I'm not used to working with, I'm used to working with images as in like the description of images, but trying to figure out how to fit like behavior, motivation, psychology in like a static picture
Mm-hmm.
has been like a really, really interesting challenge. And I was trying to think about like, what are the things. Okay, so obviously I don't believe that your personality is actually like parallel with your likes and dislikes. I think that people of all different personalities can like and dislike the same and
Mm-hmm.
or different things. But
Yeah.
when I was younger, like when I was a teenager, I thought that like the music that you listened to was like super indicative of your whole personality.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah.
you had to wear like the right band shirt to communicate the thing to people.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, what I have to actually do is kind of go back to my previous like more simplistic mode of thinking about like how do you express personality to try to figure out like how do I in the description of this character's clothes, in the posters that I put on the wall in this cell of the graphic novel or in this panel, like how do those things express personality in a way that's like multifaceted as opposed to just a really simplistic one-to-one like I'm angry so I listen to Black Sabbath.
Right. Right.
In the 60s. um yeah, anyway, so it's been like a super interesting challenge to me to try to think through like what are the personality traits that like this band or this poster or this like book on a shelf would give. And it's sort of a return to like a more simplistic, not that graphic novels are more simplistic, just that it's like a little bit more it's just like a visual mode, a visual vocabulary of personality as opposed to like a prosaic take
Yeah.
on it. And it's just been really interesting to me to feed character and behavior through a visual rather than a prosaic.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I do that in the prose. I
Mm-hmm.
will give my characters things that will indicate. I mean, because when I'm building character, and I think you do a bit of this too, like what are their favorite things? Like it doesn't have to be like color and food and stuff like that every time, but like sometimes it's favorite. What's their favorite food? What's the food that they reminds them of home, or what's the thing that they grab for when they need comfort, you know what I mean, whether it's like a book or a blanket or a piece of chocolate or whatever it is. So I build my characters out that way anyway, especially when I'm writing in worlds that have a lot of music or a lot of pop culture. So it's like, what posters did they have on their walls as a kid, and when they return to their childhood home, what's on the wall when they go back and visit themselves when they were 16, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. So it's very, I totally get what you're saying. I think when I'm because music plays such a big part of a lot of the characters that I write, music, I do build out playlists and things. And it's like those playlists can take my character through a mood journey, and when I'm writing them, I can go to through the mood journey with them by listening to that playlist, and then it sort of becomes secular, So I'm like, okay, is it me informing your mood, or is my character informing my mood? Like, what's happening here? But it is, like a whole different behavioral or character profile when you do it that way. So that's really cool that you get to you're actually thinking of it visually, like, okay, this is what the person's going to see when they're introduced to this character on the
Mhm.
page. That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. And I do think I do the same thing in prose, I'll describe a space or whatever, but I don't know why it feels different to do it without the connective tissue. Maybe that's a
Mm-hmm.
better way to say it, is like when and I feel this way when I read your writing as well, is that like the connective tissue between like the liking of something and the why, like what is
Mm-hmm.
it that appeals, like what about the music, what is the emotional vibe. I feel like that's the connective tissue that you can get in writing it
In
through, and
writing it through, yeah.
that
Yeah.
sort of you have to do without, or like that you
Yeah.
the audience when you're writing it in a graphic novel or something.
Yeah,
Anyway,
because you're limited in your words. Like you can't put, yeah.
so
Yeah.
many fewer words, so much that has to be like, because if you're leaving something to the audience's imagination, you want to be respectful and like believe that they can make the connections, but you also
Mm-hmm.
want to give enough at the beginning that you're like guiding them in
Yeah.
connections to make. So yeah, I think it's just like writing, it's just that it's like an unfamiliar form for me, so it's making me like revisit and think about the ways that I build character, the ways that I build like backstory, and how to do them in a more like direct visual way. It's cool because I'm usually like I definitely use, I would say, more words that are necessary as opposed to less words. And so doing a thing where it's like, I might write, I'm trying to remember what I was saying to Timmy, I spent X number of hours working on something. And I was like, oh, but it's only one page of the graphic novel. Like it's only one page. And then I was like, oh, but
Yeah.
if I put the information that I have and like the character building that I did, it's like a chapter of a book, but it's one page. And there's like, it's cool. I love having different media and like figuring out how to do that. Which you, because
Yeah.
you're a musician, do you find that it's similar when you're like working on a song versus working on a book? Like, are you using different communication techniques?
Yeah, I think because when you were talking about picturing the panels and like, you have such a limited amount of space for text, and I'm thinking, okay, what you're really doing is like pumping subtext in there,
Yes.
which is what you do when you're writing songs. It's like you only have, 4 lines in a verse, and you've got, your 3, 6, 8 line chorus, and maybe a bridge, and some
Right.
ad-libs, but like that's it. You're really trying to get this message across, whatever your message is, by using words that suggest a whole host of other things,
Yeah.
and that's like, that's really hard to do in a song. And the conversely, like when you're writing long form prose, you want to throw all those words in there, and you're like, but this is too much. Let me just like take this chunk of wood and carve a nice little sculpture out of it so that it leaves some room for interpretation from the reader, while also guiding them to the place that you want them to go. Because what you don't want is to like set things up, you think you're setting things up, and then they get to the end, to your ending, and they're like, that's not where I thought this was going. This was
Right.
so unsatisfying. You know what I mean? If you
Yep.
do that in a song, your song dies.
Yeah.
It's not going to get any airplay. If you do that with a novel, they're not going to pick up your next book. So I think it is similar in that way.
Mhm.
But when like thinking about graphic novels and songwriting, I think the whole thing about subtext and like planting seeds and hoping that the listener or the reader can pick up on those seeds and go to the place that you want them to go.
Yeah.
That's, I think, a lot of similarities there.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And thinking about the way that like both the writing of a song and then since you also are singing your own music, like your performance of it
Mhm.
adds another layer of
Yeah,
information. But then if someone else was performing your song and interpreted it differently, then it would be equally a legitimate interpretation, like a cover.
yeah, yeah. We were. It's so funny. Like I'm a really big fan of covers, but I love it when someone takes the song and makes it completely their own.
Me too.
Um, and I hate it when they don't. Like it really, really drives me crazy. I'm like, what was the point? You
That was
wasted
the point.
money, like electricity, time recording this, except for when like occasionally you'll get, I think it was there was some band, some like big rock band I think it was Faith No More,
I
who
love
did
it.
a cover of a Commodore song or Lionel Richie song, and it was like note for note, like literally note for note. And I was like, they just wanted to like recreate it,
Yeah.
or like I think the Foo Fighters did like a whole Bee Gees album during the lockdown. Oh,
I
you
didn't
haven't
know
heard it?
that.
Oh my
No.
God, it's yeah.
Oh my God, I
Um,
have to though. I'm trying to imagine the vocal stylings of the Bee Gees as interpreted by the Foo Fighters. That's very
yeah, I think it's called like the GB. There's something like they have some weird like play on the name. I'll find it and I'll send you the
oh
link.
yeah.
But
Oh, because Dave
but
Grohl, DG.
yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, and it's really cool, and it's very faithful to the original, and it's sort of like tongue in cheek, which is how the Faith No More cover was.
Right.
And then you get covers where they don't sound like, you hear a song, you're like, I know why do I know these words? And then you realize what song it is, and then I get like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like I love that, because I think when you can take someone else's words, especially in like an iconic song, and then a song that everyone knows, and just like turn it on its head. That's like one of my favorite things in music. But you don't want that when you're writing a book,
Yeah.
because you don't want someone to come to a conclusion that you didn't want them to get to. There's one thing to like read different interpretations and things and go, oh well, I think the character could have meant that, or I think this scene could have meant that, or could have been this meaningful or not as meaningful as, or whatever. But when you get to the end and it's like, that's not what I wanted from this. This isn't satisfying. Then yeah, I feel like such a failure. but but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's so interesting too, because there are some books or movies or shows where I realize that that's my problem with it, is not that it's a bad piece of art. It's just that it's not doing what I wanted it to.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is like, I think that sometimes that means you've written a bad book, especially in romance or like another genre where like the ending has to feel a certain kind of satisfying. But in other books, I kind of think it's cool. Like oh
Oh
God,
yeah.
what was the book? Oh, Laini Taylor wrote that trilogy. Oh God, I'm blanking on it. Anyway,
Google. Google.
not the point. The first book is I loved, and it had huge like fantasy world building, really, really interesting, set in Prague. Oh my God, I'm blanking on the name of it. Anyway, everyone listening to this will know because it's like her, if you like Laini Taylor, it's like her most famous series. Anyway, the first book was like very interesting and intricate and was clearly setting up a very cool world. And I loved it. And the second book came out and it took it in a direction that was not only like unforeseen by me personally, but also like not the direction that I was hoping that it would go in, because there were like a certain storyline and characters that I was very interested in and I really wanted to learn about them, and it took it in a completely different direction. And I was like buddy reading the series with a friend years and years ago, like literally both sitting on the couch reading the book together, buddy reading. And I was I was saying to my friend, like, it's not that I don't think book 2 is good. I actually think it's masterfully executed. The plot is intricate. It's interesting. The world building is amazing. It just wasn't the book I wanted to read next in the series. And that doesn't make it a bad book. In fact, I was very impressed. I don't know if you feel this way, but as a avid reader my whole life and now as a writer, like I generally know what's going to happen. Not in like I can see the twists and turns of every mystery, but like there are certain things that like if you do them as an author, you recognize them when someone else is setting them up. And it's not like you can't enjoy a twist or something. It's just that you can watch and be like, oh my gosh, this author like repeated this kind of strange word twice. Either they have a bad editor and you hope it's
you're waiting for the payoff. Yeah,
and you recognize it. And so I feel like what was probably happening was that as an author, I was like reading the second book, thinking of all the things that I thought were being set up in book 1 and the ways that this author was going to take them. And then what she did was show me that she had set up completely other things as well. I just hadn't noticed them, which again, that's not a bad book. That's a great book. That just wasn't what I wanted. And so I'm always thinking about that too, when I read like people being like, oh, I really liked this book, but I don't know, it wasn't what I was expecting. 2 stars or whatever, 3 stars. And I'm like, that's so interesting, because when a book isn't what I'm expecting, I think I tend to assume that I missed something rather than that the author has failed. So I guess that's just also an interesting, like, who do you like, where do you think the truth of what something should be lies? Is it in the book or is it in the reader? And I guess to me, it's halfway between.
Well, I mean, that's what I find interesting about, like, I got my writing start with fan fiction, and my very first fanfic was written because I was so angry at the end of an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I was like, there's absolutely no way that this episode should have gone this way. Whoever wrote this is a moron. I mean, I was like, so I rewrote the episode. I had no idea that other people around the world had been doing that for decades, with other shows. I just did it because I was so angry and I needed to like do something else with it. And so, I think, you see that more, I hope, in visual medium like film and TV, where people just like, you know what, I could have done a better job than you do with books. Fortunately, I know that there's fanfic for every property out there. And I know like there's like a whole conversation now because of Interview with the Vampires, that the whole Anne Rice fanfic thing has come up again, and people are now free to write fanfic because of the TV show. But so like I think that the whole relationship between piece of art and receiver is it changes per medium, but there's still this like end game in all medium that the receiver has the final say of what that piece of art means to them. You know what I mean? So whether it's a book, a song, a painting, whatever it is, like whatever the creator intended, it's the person who receives it that's like, well, whatever your intention was, whatever, I don't care. This is what it means to me, kind of thing, you know. And sometimes when you're on the same page, that's what like, oh my God, you got out of the book what I put into it. That's great.
Yeah.
And then I've had people say to me about songs that I've written, like they thought this song was about something completely different. And I'm like, well, if that's what it means to you and that's what's important to you, then cool.
Yep.
That's not what I meant. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. And I always think that that's amazing, actually, because it just means like the life of your piece of work is so much wider and
yeah,
bigger than like what you could have intended. Because there's like somebody who is reading and getting what you did intend. There's someone who is reading and getting something like to the left or
something
right of
different.
what you intended.
Yeah.
And there's someone who's reading it and is like, I mean, I actually read a review back in the days when I went on Goodreads. I read a review of my first book, and someone was like convinced that it's Teen Wolf fan fiction. They're like, it's really obvious. Or maybe it was the second book. I don't know. I've never seen Teen Wolf. I've never watched even an episode of the show. I've never read the fanfic. I know it's huge, obviously, but
Yeah.
like, I had never seen it. And people were like, yeah, obviously, like so-and-so is so-and-so. And it's, you know, the thing where it's like the mashup between the two characters' names that is the fandom. They were like, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
this or this fandom.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
And then there
remember.
was like a list of comments under it with people being like, oh my God, I can totally see it. Oh my God, yeah, this person is this person. And it's fascinating. And I was reading it and I was like, that is hilarious. I've literally never seen that show in my life. But also like there are tropes in TV shows
Oh
and
yeah.
novels that cross over all the time. So it's not like
Yeah.
it's inaccurate of like the truth of my intention. But if you can read it that way, like great. I mean, I literally studied English and I know that, I mean, like that my academia was my previous life. I'm the last person in the world to ever say like your interpretation is invalid.
Right.
That's what I spent my entire academic life doing, was like pasting my interpretation onto a bunch of other people's shit. But yeah,
Meanwhile,
it's wild
meanwhile,
how
I would be like, oh, you know what? The Teen Wolf fandom really loves this book. You should check it out in my marketing.
amazing. I mean,
No,
hey,
that's
that's
wild.
great. I should do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I accidentally wrote Teen Wolf fanfic. I've never even seen the show.
Oh, that's a good idea. You heard it here first. I wrote Teen Wolf fanfic without ever seeing the show.
Well, it's like it was last week, somebody on Instagram, this novel account on book appreciation account on Instagram, did a whole thing about the Gilmore Girls, like what each character on Gilmore Girls would read, and they
Oh,
picked
cute.
one of my books as one of the characters. And
Oh,
I've never seen 10 seconds of Gilmore Girls.
that's so funny.
This is my confession. I actually texted a friend. I was like, I've never seen this show, but cool.
Wait, so which character did they say would read Wishy?
I think her name was Lane.
Oh, Lane. Okay, that's great. Well, here's what I can tell you about Lane. She is the only non-white character in Star
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah. She is super, super into music and constantly, because she has a super religiously and culturally conservative mother who like doesn't let her do anything that she likes to do. And so she has this whole like secret music obsession where under her floorboards are like all the CDs, and she keeps like makeup and hair dye, and it's all very secret. And
Oh
so
wow.
yeah, so when I saw that, I forgot who it was, but I remember seeing it on your Instagram and being like, oh, that's great, because Lane is the person who is like introducing, you know, like cool 60s neo-punk to Rory, like in Stars Hollow. Of course, she would love a like non-white rock star, strong woman, who like doesn't need no man, just like wants to do the thing, but then actually gets romance because she has big crushes on people, but like can never date because her mom's
Great.
so I actually
Wow.
think it's a great pick. And Lane
Cool.
rocks.
Awesome. Okay, good.
But
I mean, it was really fun, and I thought it was really fun, but I was just like, that's so funny. I've never seen it. But now I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
anyone who loves Gilmore Girls, Lane would like this book.
that's right. But don't ever watch any of like after season 2 or 3, because poor Lane like really she falls victim, or she is subjugated, I should say, to the curse of like domesticity.
Okay.
No spoilers.
I do have to watch it at some point. It's funny because we were talking about, and we're totally off topic here, but just talking about like creators. So the same creator who created Gilmore Girls also did Once Upon a Time. And I was talking to someone about like how those shows have parallel tropes in them, but for some people one show works and for other people the other. And it could be, it's more than just like the fantasy slash reality aspect of it. I think
Right.
it's just the characterization. Those tropes work with some certain characters and not with others, you know.
Yeah.
So we were talking about that, but yeah,
Interesting.
I mean, it's interesting, like the interpretation that people get, even just from watching shows like that, the ship wars that come up, like, oh, these two people belong together, and then someone's like, oh no, these two people belong together, you're crazy. You know what I mean? Like, that's again what the writers are writing, and sometimes in TV shows they're doing that on purpose because they don't want to lose the viewers, right?
Yeah.
But they're, they created the character of Spike on Buffy, who's supposed to only be in there for 2 episodes,
Right. And then everyone loved him, right?
and everyone loves him, and they were like,
As
why
it
do you
should,
love this
because he's
guy? He's such a
delightful.
jerk. Yeah, he's so, and yeah. So you never know how your receiver is going to receive a piece of art, whether it's a character or a graphic novel or whatever it is.
Yep.
Mm,
No, totally
yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very glad that we went far astray, because basically talking to you about media is my favorite thing in the whole world.
Yeah. We'll have to do like a pop culture episode, like just talk about like, yeah.
All right. We've gone rogue. We're doing a pop culture episode.
Avery's not here to like pull us back.
Mom's gone. Let's talk about
Out.
pop culture. No, that would be delightful. We'll have to figure it out. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what listeners tell us, if you would like to hear me and Xio talk about pop culture, and if so, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so much, like we were talking about, we're in this golden age of television because of all the streaming services, like competing with all this amazing content. So like if we do a pop culture episode, which we are going to do, we just have to figure out when.
Yeah.
So listeners, let us know what you're watching. Let us know what you're looking forward to. There's a lot of stuff coming up in the new year and over the holidays. Like we were just talking the other day, I was talking to friends the other day, that people are putting together their lists of like holiday movies they want to watch,
Oh,
because like all of the streaming services and like Hallmark and Lifetime have their holiday movie schedules out. And there's a lot of new content. There's a lot of queer holiday films coming out. There's a lot of stuff coming out. So
so
let
fun.
us know what you're looking forward to. We can maybe just, chat about that stuff.
I would love to do that. I also I have big admission. I've actually never seen a Hallmark Christmas movie.
I've seen one.
Okay, I've seen a
One.
couple similar, what I assume are similar vibe of
Yeah.
things. But I would I would be delighted to dip my toe in, especially if they're queer.
Well, I interviewed Sierra Simone and Julie Murphy on Fox Friday last week,
Fun.
and so I was asking them about Merry Little Meet Cute and like what kind of research they did, because they're both really, really into Christmas movies. And I was like, I have a confession to make. I haven't seen half the movies or any of the movies you're talking about. Like, I think one of Sierra's favorites was Love Actually, and she's like, I know it's problematic, but I love that movie. And I was like, I've never seen it. I know it's problematic,
Yeah.
but I've never seen it. So yeah, so since we're coming towards the end of the season, end of this season, second season of DRW, guys, let us know what you're looking forward to, whether it be a holiday film or a new TV series, or the Mayfair Witches series is coming. So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff.
I love this idea, Xio, because what if we did we could play therapist to the characters,
to the characters
in one of these movies? Because I feel like what always happens is whenever I watch a rom-com, which I have mixed feelings about. There are some that I have loved and others that I'm like, seriously, get this schlock away from me.
Right.
But I feel like what almost always happens in the ones that I hate is that it's the same as in romance novels that I hate, where it's some tiny miscommunication that blows up the whole thing, or some person just drastically overreacting to something that spurs the entire thing. And then I'm like, okay, come on, get it together, people, and go to therapy at the end. But maybe come to us for therapy.
Yeah, we should definitely do that. We'll do like a character therapy.
Or
what DRW advice for these fictional characters? I think that would be so much fun.
Yes. Okay. So listeners, as Xio said, tell us what characters we should psychoanalyze.
Yeah. Let us know.
Let us know. Don't let us start with the Gilmore Girls, because I have too much to say. And
I have way too many seasons to watch. We get there.
Oh God, Gilmore Girls. I really we could do a whole. Well, we couldn't. I could do a whole episode just talking about all my feelings about Gilmore Girls.
I mean, after this last episode of Interview with the Vampire, there's a lot. I mean, they're playing the show as almost like a dysfunctional family, which it is, but they're really, really leaning into it. It's really good. So Anyway.
Because I'm at the cabin and I wasn't able to watch it with you, which is what I really wanted. I am saving it. I'm saving it until I can binge when I get back. But then maybe we should do a watch party or a special episode.
We'll do like a watch party or something, maybe for the finale or something.
Yes.
I think the finale is November 6th.
Oh, that's the day I get back from RAM.
Is it?
Yeah.
But we don't have to do it that day, but like, you know.
Oh yeah, then they'll be up.
Yeah, they'll all be up.
Listeners, we'll plan our parties.
We're planning while we're here on the podcast. Avery, you see what happens when you're not here.
This is what happens. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you everyone so much for hanging out with us. Tell us what shows or movies or whatever we should psychoanalyze the characters of. Send us your problems. Just, give us.
We want to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. Please, we have dearromancewriter.com. There's a form where you can anonymously submit your problems. You can email us at advice@dearromancewriter.com.
Yep.
Or you can
DM us.
DM us on any of our platforms.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was so lovely to have you hanging out with us, and we will be back next time again. And we cannot wait to give you some more questionable advice from this duo of happily ever after enthusiasts. Have a good one.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for subscribing to Dear Romance Writer. Remember to keep sending in those letters at dearromancewriter.com. We can't wait to tell you what to do. Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love, frolic.media/podcasts.